And what used to drive me crazy, I could be wearing one of those red shirts, not for the military, but when I was a 29-year-old kid, I got elected to the United States Senate out of nowhere on November the 7th. And I got a phone call like you guys got, or someone walking up to me. On December 18th, I was down in Washington. I'm the first United States Senator I ever knew. And I was down in Washington hiring my staff, and I got a phone call saying that my family had been in an accident. And just like you guys know, by the tone of the phone call, you just knew, didn't you? You knew when they walked up the path. You knew when the call came. You knew. You just felt it in your bones. Something bad happened. And I knew. I don't know how I knew. But the call said my wife was dead, my daughter was dead, and I wasn't sure how my sons were going to make it. At Christmas shopping, and a tractor trailer broadsided them, and in one instant, killed two of them, and, well, and I have to tell you, I used to resent. I knew people meant well. They'd come up to me and say, Joe, I know how you feel. Right? You knew they meant well. You knew they were genuine, but you knew they didn't have any damn idea how you felt, right? Isn't that true? I mean, that black hole you feel in your chest like you're being sucked back into it. Looking at your kids, and most of you have kids here, and knowing, it was the first time in my career, my life, I realized someone could go out, and I probably shouldn't say this to the press here, but no, but it's more important. You're more important. For the first time in my life, I understood how someone could consciously decide to commit suicide. Not because they were deranged, not because they were nuts, because they'd been to the top of the mountain, and they just knew in their heart they'd never get there again, that there was never going to be that way ever again. That's how an awful lot of you feel. And by the way, to the moms and dads, no parent should be predeceased by their son or daughter. I unfortunately have that experience too. But you know what? I don't know about you guys, but I was angry. Man, I was angry. You all probably handle it better than I did. I really mean it. I was angry. Not that it's relevant what religion, but I'm a practicing Catholic, and I was a practicing Catholic at the time. But I was mad at God. Oh, man. I remember being in the rotunda, walking through to get to the plane, to get home, to get to identify the, anyway. And I remember looking up and saying, God, as if I was talking to God, myself. You can't be good. How can you be good? You probably handle it better than I did. But I was angry. And I have a great family. And this woman literally saved my life 5 years later. But I have a great family. My mother, my brothers, my sister is my best friend in the world. And they're all there for me. But there's still something gigantic missing. And some of you, the loss occurred 2 years ago. Some of you, maybe 2 months ago. And just when you think, maybe I'm going to make it, you're riding down the road and you pass a field, you see a flower and it reminds you, or you hear a tune on the radio, or you just look up in the night and you think maybe I'm not going to make it, man. Because you feel at that moment the way you felt the day you got the news. And out of the blue, I got a phone call one day from a guy who was a much older guy than me, and I didn't even know it, he was a former governor. That's all right, I'm used to babies. You don't have to take them out. Don't worry about it, for real. And so what happened was, I got this call out of the blue from a guy who was a former governor of New Jersey. I never knew him, never met him, and he said, call to express my sympathy, Senator. I know what it's like. And I felt like saying, And he said, I know what it's like. He said, when I was Attorney General, I was a young guy, and he said, I lived across the Green in Trenton from in the state capitol from my office. I was Attorney General, and I used to go home for lunch every day. And one day I'm walking back across the Green for lunch. It was only a block away, and my woman who came in to help once or twice a week came running across the Green and she said, Attorney General, your wife just dropped dead. He said, I remember what it was like. I started listening. And he said, you know what helped me? He said, and for what it's worth, I'd recommend it to you. He said, start to keep a calendar. Keep a calendar. And every day when you go to bed, every night when you go to bed, mark in that calendar whether the day was a 1, which was as bad as the day you heard the news, or a 10. He said, you won't have 10s for a long time. But measure. Just mark it down. And they say, after 2 months, take out that calendar and put it on a graph. And you'll find that your down days are just as bad as the first day. But here's what happens. Instead of them being like this, they get further and further apart. He said, that's when you know you're going to make it. That's when you know you're going to make it, when you realize the measure of your progress, you mothers, you fathers, you husbands, you wives, you brothers, you sisters. That's when you know. That's when you know I might make it. And all of you, I don't know all of you, many of you have kids and grandkids in the other rooms. And you know as well as I do that they need you. But you know what most people don't understand, didn't go through what we went through? You need them more than they need you. You need them more than they need you. You're going to find something remarkable to happen. My mother, a sweet, old, wonderful Irish lady, said something at the time of the accident happened that I thought was the cruelest thing as I came out identifying. Anyway, came out. She said, Joey, she adored my wife and my daughter. She said, Joey, out of everything terrible, something good will happen if you look for it hard enough. And I thought, what a cruel thing to say. Really, I did. You know what you're going to find out? Your relationship with your son or daughter, which is already close, it's going to be like a bond of steel that runs through your chest and theirs and wraps you together. You're going to find with their brothers and sisters, they're going to be each other's best friends their entire life. Everybody's friends are their brothers and sisters. You're going to find there is a degree of difference and depth of a relationship you never, ever, ever thought could happen. And I'm going to say something outrageous. I was a good and caring father before the accident. In a bizarre way, it's almost harder for the parents of our fallen heroes. Because parents never expect to have a child predecease them. Never. And the irony is, when Jill, and this is the most incredible woman in the world, when Jill makes up the wreaths for us on December 18th, when we have a special mass and for the gravesite, when Jill on Mother's Day walked me out to the cemetery and brought flowers I brought for my mom, and she brought the favorite flower for my deceased wife and daughter. What happens is that there really is hope. The ache in the back never goes away, but it gets controllable. When I asked Jill to marry me, I realized I'm being personal, but this is important, I hope, to you. And I had to ask her, by the way, 5 times. That, by the way, that's not a joke. That's the God's truth. 5 times. Finally, this is 5 years after the accident. 5 times. The last time I came back and I knocked on her apartment door, I'd just come home from Africa and a trip as a senator, and I said, Jill, look, you've now engaged my pride. This is the last time I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask, and she's at the door. I didn't walk in. She's holding the door open. I said, the last time, let me say to you, I'm going to ask you, don't say anything, I'm going to ask you, will you marry me? You don't have to tell me when. You just have to tell me if. And if you say no, that's it. And she looked at me, she said, yes. Then she later tells my sister, when asked why she finally said yes, she said, I fell in love with the boys.